Hey everybody, welcome to Dogwood Springs Outdoors, where I tend to take you along to whatever I'm working on that I feel like might be helpful to some of you when I film it, at least. Today it's different from, I guess, mostly what I've done before. I am working on something for my boat. We got a deck boat last summer. It's about, it's older, it's like 20 years old. And took it out a good bit last summer, and it did fine, but it just had one battery in it, and that was a deep cycle battery. And we added kind of early fall, we added a fish finder, and between that and the other, stereo and other things, and we go out there, take the family out there and play on the water, and off and on a lot, or have stuff, the accessories running, and it did fine, but you could tell that it's hard on that battery, and I don't want to get stuck out there and have to get towed back. And so I decided to add a second battery, and so been looking a lot at that, and ended up going with the Blue Seas system as a mini ATA battery is what I got for this. There's a lot of videos on YouTube showing this and how to install it and all that, and I feel like I've watched most of them. That's just kind of the way I am, and so I did have my daughter coming down the driveway, so I had to get out of the way. But anyway, so I'm just going to show you what I've done, how I've set it up. I'll show you the boat, I'll show you my mounting system and all that, and just talk about kind of my challenges along the way and what I did to fix them or resolve them, and a few little things that I just am doing differently than anything else I've seen online. Not that I've invented it by any stretch, but just that I feel like made it easier for me. But for the most part, I'm just following the Blue Seas guide, which is really easy. I mean, if you just look at it, if you haven't done this kind of thing before, it might seem like a lot, but it's really not. I mean, it's just short runs. The biggest thing is getting the actual supplies that you need to make all this happen, and the right gauge, wire for everything, or cable, and tools. I had to buy a hydraulic crimper from you can get them on Amazon. I got one from Harbor Freight because it had more adapters for different gauges than the ones I saw on Amazon. There's more of a range, so I thought it would be more useful in the long run, but we'll look at that too. And anyway, I'll try to make this as short and as helpful as I can. So this is my setup so far. You can get these plates from Home Depot. I ordered this one. I ordered a 12 by 24 and cut it. It's not hard to manipulate, to cut, and even if you need to cut angles or notches out of it, you use a jigsaw or skill saw or anything like that works. I just used a regular wood blade on mine. Didn't have any trouble. I did sand it down with some with my palm sander with the fine grit on there, just to get all that off and smooth it back. And this is the Blue Seas diagram, and for what I have. And so you can get just the ATA battery, just the switch, which is that, but this bottom part is the ACR, the black box right here, and that's automatic charging relays, what that stands for. And that's really kind of to me really the bonus of the whole deal. And so this is the system itself. If you're not familiar or you hadn't looked it up, it separates everything. So I was worried I was going to have to switch back and forth, which so depending on what system you have, you do. Like when you get out there and cut it off, you need to switch to the house battery, and then when you want to go back start, switch back to the start battery. This is not that way. When you have it on, everything, your house system is pulling from that battery, and your starting system is pulling from that battery. And so you shouldn't have to get in there and mess with it at all while you're out on the water. unless for whatever reason, if you did get ready to come back and you didn't have enough charge to crank your boat on your start battery, you can go down to combine the batteries right there, and it will you'll get that additional juice to at least get back out and get home. But the charging relay is just that, and when your boat is running, it is charging both batteries. So it's just overall a fairly simple and really ingenious system in my mind. Again, this is the, let's see if I can move pan over here. This is the hydraulic crimping tool I bought from Harbor Freight, and it has all these different dies, you know, and it's one for the top and the bottom. I got 6 in there because that's the main gauge I'm using, that I'm running, using it for. But they just fit down in there, and it's got the size on there. There's 0, and so this is, you know, good range of them. But that's actually what I'm about to do right now, is make some cables. These short runs are going in. This looks really short, but it is should be plenty long enough because all I'm going on these are from the negative bus bar to the negative terminals on my house and starting battery. This is marine grade, is tinned copper, so it should, you know, helps it prevent corrosion. And these are obviously the tinned ends there. But so this is just going from the bus bar, which is really close to where my batteries will be sitting, and so that's why they're so short. But I need to make these. I don't know if I can film all this doing this or not, but so just putting one of my ends on here, and I'm gonna try to crimp it. I mean, this heavy gauge wire, that's why you need the crimping tools. If you want to do, you know, solder as well, that's fine, but you don't need to only do solder. You need to crimp and solder. Alright, once you get it on there, you just release it. Turn it off, and the pressure all drops off, and it's easy to get on. And so then I'm gonna go ahead and slide one of my heat shrink tubes they gave me here, and I bought more of these for other areas. Of course, it's giving me fits. All right. You can use a heat gun or a lighter or whatever. I found that these little stick lighters are nice. I have a heat gun, but I've been using this dude right here. Just you need to evenly do it as much as possible. I like to do it around the insulation first, so it doesn't slide. It'll go ahead and grip down there, and then doesn't slide anymore. Some people put it right up next to the edge, almost on that circle. I feel like you're, you know, taking away from your connection once you screw it down if you get it too much on there. And if you want to add liquid tape to that, just for extra coverage, then feel free. But that's it. And so I'm going to just do that to all these others, and then we'll show you once we get it hooked up. So this is our boat that we're working on. It is, as you can see, a Tahoe 220. It's a 2002 model. So we're up in the boat now, and I'm just going to show you. I've got everything hooked up and installed from last time you saw it in the back of my truck. It's come a long way. actually tested it as well, and I'm just going to decided instead of showing you every little thing I screwed on and attached and whatnot, I can just kind of show you the layout and walk you through it that way while it's attached. And between that and the diagram, especially if you're using the Blue Sea systems, their diagram is very straightforward as far as how to attach everything. And then I'll try to tell you, if I can, any things that I found while I was going through the process that, you know, maybe slowed me down or during all of it. But this is my application. You can see right along here at the top, that is that little piece of wood that was already in there and had been used for something, because it had holes already in it. I don't know if it was originally in the boat or added later, but that worked perfectly to install my PVC board on. And so I have 2 screws in there, and I pre-drill those holes, and then I have one in the bottom. I only ended up using one. And on the back side of that, I have a little piece of insulation that from when I stripped these cables to put the post on, and that was perfect for just kind of a shock absorber. This little piece of PVC here was added and already there when I had my insulation, but it did help a little bit because it's resting on it down at the bottom. Again, mine is 1/2 inch, 12 by 24 is what I ordered. I cut it. I think what I ended up with is about 14 inches long. As far as the arrangement of this on here, that is completely up to you, and what, you know, based on where your lines are running is what I think you need to do. This is a very common configuration that I've used based on what others I've seen, and then I'll just go over real quick. So these two coming out the top of the switch is, and again, my switch is just off, on, and combined, and that's really what I wanted. So I don't have to worry about anything. When it's on, both batteries are pulling juice. There are some that are separated completely, so you have, say, 1, 2, and which if you have one selected, it's just pulling from that one battery, not both batteries, and so you would have to swap it based on which one you want to be using. I didn't want that, and okay, so I'll just go start with the switch and just go over where everything's running and what it's for. Now, their post, like I said, you can see on the Blue Seas diagram, and it's all labeled. In my case, this looks a little different because I have 2 cables coming off the top of this top post here, but they're both going to the engine. One's the engine primary, and the other one is going, actually, I say to the engine, it's going to the trim oil motor, and it was run directly before, and I didn't want to separate that, and I wanted it linked to the starting battery, which is what this was for, so that's why they're both on that one switch. This here on this side, and you can tell it's black cable, but I didn't have enough cable, and I had extra black cable, so I put these red heat shrink tubes on it just for me or whomever in the future to help indicate it actually was positive. This goes unfused to the positive starting battery there, so coming from the left. On the right side, this goes to my 30 amp circuit breaker, and then up to the fuse box from there. The bottom post coming out goes unfused to the house battery positive. Now that's where the difference is. Now the ACR, and that's everything coming out of the switch. The ACR, you have coming out this right side here, that goes to the house battery fused. You got a fuse mounted to the post there, so we can add that. Again, that's positive. And then the other positive is going to the starting battery, also fused. So both coming out of the ACR are fused. And then you can see this other cable, smaller, like 14 gauge, coming out of the bottom of there. There are two connections on the bottom that you would have to, put connectors on the end of your cable. One of them is mandatory. That's the ground. That's got a 1 amp fuse, or calls for it, in there, and then that goes to my negative bus bar. The other one is optional, but it is for the ignition. And so I have this one running all the way up, and I labeled it all the way up to the ignition on the boat, and that is supposed to help eliminate some of the interference. And I was having a lot of interference before, to the point that, like, when I would crank the boat, the fish finder would cut off, and restart, and which is bad on the fish finder, and definitely not ideal. Since I've done all that, that's completely cleared up. Now, I don't know if that's because of this specific battery. I hadn't tested that because I just went ahead and did it. I don't know if it's because I have this direct line, or if it's just because I have the two batteries now and they're separated. But either way, it's working like it was meant to. The fish finder is. What else? So this shielded cable has been great. It made the run a lot easier. So again, both of these are going up to the fuse box. That's everything in here, 6 gauge, and there are charts online that you can determine the gauge that you should be using for your boat based on the length of the run and the amount of amps you're pulling. What else? I think that's everything now coming out of the ACR, and then all, like, the negatives from both batteries are going to the bus bar, and I got, well, that's going to, we also have added, which you can kind of see, the NoCo Genius charging unit in there, and I've been really happy with that so far. I didn't think this house battery was even going to get up to full, but it has, and it's maintained. It's in maintenance mode now, and you can tell it took a while for that one to get there, but it did. Even though it was showing 12.9 volts to start with, it eventually got up to around 13.5 before it went into maintenance mode. All right, what else? Anything else going? Oh, so this cable right here coming into the bus bars is from the engine itself, and let's see, I think that's all those. So the only other two cables that I hadn't talked about are both these smaller, aside from what the ones that go into the charger, are these two that I have on the positive house battery. And this is my house battery. On this side, I just put it that way because I thought it's a group 27, it's group 24, mainly because I thought it'd be better to have a little more room with the smaller battery to work with on that side. I don't know that it helped me really, but that's why I did it that way. But anyway, these, again, this one was completely optional. I just chose to add this one. This goes directly to my stereo, so the stereo will work without anything being turned on. And I did that so I wouldn't lose my presets or anything like that every time something was cut completely off and have to start over. And then that's got a 10 amp fuse, inline fuse there, and that's just because that's what the stereo calls for. So whatever, if you add that, just use what your stereo calls for. And this other one is going to my bilge pump, so that my bilge has, I just have one bilge pump, but it has manual, auto, and of course then the ground line, and that is for the auto. So, and I've tested it just to make sure everything was good, but it cuts on if once it detects water. The other line from the bilge goes up to the panel, and I can flip the switch to turn it on that way if I need to. And down in the bottom, the tray, the battery, I just got a 2 battery tray. I will put all links to all this stuff online, but that is, it has holes. I don't know if you can see those little spots to where you can drill it in. I did not do that. I decided I wanted as few holes in here as I was able to get by with. So what I ended up using was some kind of commercial grade, if there is such thing, Velcro, and that worked well. Now the tray does have ribs along the bottom, which I didn't know when I ordered it, but for like drainage and any water to get through. It's also a great place to for screws to slip under there when you're installing everything else. But don't ask me how I know. But I used that, and I was a little concerned that I was going to have trouble because of the ribbing with the Velcro not reaching, but it hasn't had any problem. But I put that on and let it sit, and then once I had it placed where I wanted it, I set the batteries on it and didn't left it for a minute till it sealed very well, or not for a minute, but I just left it. And it has not moved, and I think between that and these cables being pretty snug, that's kept everything where it needs to be. And that's it, really. The charging unit is I just added those to each battery, those connections to each battery. That's not, it has its own fuse in there. I didn't have to add any inline fuse, and so far so good. I haven't taken it out at all since I added the charge. So this is the engine compartment here, and it's all open between there and here. I mean, it's a good, and it's not very far. My battery the original battery when it's just one, was just about right here on the bottom. But my run, it goes around through here, and I purposely ran it like there's the access panel, and then that's the rod storage, and it's open so I could get all that. Made it a lot easier. I did use a wire cable puller up here to the helm. So that wasn't as detailed as we normally do, or I normally do in the videos. As far as didn't show you, every step as far as mounting all the things to the battery and running all the wire through the boat and all that. But I mean, it's really, every boat's different. It's fairly straightforward. It's really just kind of the questions that you run into. Like I said, one of my big ones was I was concerned that I didn't have everything hooked up appropriately. Like, say, some of the stuff that I wanted to go to the house battery was going to the starting battery, or vice versa. But I really kind of think I just overthought it, and it's set up that way. I mean, everything that I have running directly is going to the house like it's supposed to. Everything that's through this fuse box up here is going to the house as well. The only thing that's hooked up directly to the starting battery are the lines coming from the engine. So I think, we should be in good shape. It's holding charge. Don't have any parasitic drain anymore, knock on wood. Hopefully that stays that way. I think that the old radio was doing that, and it wasn't even wired directly, so I'm not sure what was going on with that directly to the battery. But that's it for now. As always, y'all, thanks for watching, and come back and see us.